and welcome to another gauge demo from flipgauges.com. Today we're taking a look at my new approach gauge for UK airports. This consists of 200 different approaches and there's approximately 100 airports depending on how many approaches each airport has. So basically the idea of this gauge is that you can pick a location or an airport and a specific runway within the UK and then hit a button and then automatically you're on the approach for that runway. So let's cover the buttons and dials first of all. Okay, so on the homepage there are instructions as to what the buttons and dials do. The S6 button takes you to your approach. The left dial alters your list plus and minus 1, and the right dial changes the list of locations plus and minus 5. The S1 button will take you to the menu, and I'll click on that now. Okay, so in the menu we have a random bank and heading option. So it does what it says. It puts you on your approach, but it'll slightly skew both your heading and your roll to make it a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to turn that off for now. You also have an option to set your sim to pause once you hit the S6 button, so it can give you a chance to gather your thoughts for the scenery to load and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave that off. You also have the option here on the right dial to change your altitude and the left dial to change your speed. So depending on which aircraft you're using, it's important to make certain that you set your approach speed. So I'm in a 737 at the moment, so 170 knots is about right. And I'm going to leave my altitude at 1500. Now that's radio height, so that will be obviously high up above the ground. Okay, so S1 will take me out of the menu and take me back into the main gauge. Now if I press SF1 again from the main gauge, it takes you into the menu as well. Okay, so here's the list of all the locations. The left dial will enable you to scroll through that list up and down one entry at a time, and the right dial will scroll down 5 entries at a time so you can nip through it fairly quickly. Okay, so on the main page we have the list of airports and runways, the runway number down here on the right hand side, and you also have an indication whether there is an ILS or not on that runway. Now if there is an ILS, the radio is automatically tuned to the ILS frequency as well. Here we have an indication, there's a little aeroplane here, it shows you a rough indication of your altitude as a bar chart. At the bottom we have the airspeed that's set and the altitude that's set above ground. And at the bottom here is a little green line, that is a DME indicator, so the closer it is to the right hand side, the closer you are to your DME as well. Okay, so let's go to a few approaches. Okay, so if you're lucky enough to have the complete edition of SPAD.neXt, you will hear a text-to-speech announcement telling you which airport and which runway you are approaching, but you won't hear that on this demo. Okay, so I'm going to select a approach and I'm going to go for Gatwick 26 left, and I'm going to hit S6 and we're off. Okay, I have a few different approach gauges, one for challenging airports, and boy, some of those really are challenging. I have capital cities as well, and I'm working off some takeoff gauges as well, so please go and check those out. Okay, let's see if I can get this on the ground. Now, anytime you can just press the S6 key again if you want to reset your approach, and it'll put you straight back on the approach. Now, as you can see on the gauge, you can see the aircraft lowering itself on the bar chart, gives you a rough idea of how high you are. And the DME bar is moving as well, showing me I'm getting closer and closer to the DME as well. Excuse my terrible approach. Okay, and that's how not to do an approach. But if you want to restart the approach, just hit S6 and straight on the approach again. If you decide you want to come in from the other way, you can just change it to the approach on the other side, hit S6, and now you're coming in the other way. Let's select something else. Where should we go? Aberdeen. Yep, let's go for that. Now, as you can see, it puts you straight on the approach even though the scenery is not loaded. It's one of the reasons why you might want to start sim paused, but at least it gets you straight in and flying. You can just reset the approach at any point as well. There we go. So I hope you get the gist of the idea of the gauge. So you just select whichever airport you want. There's some fairly challenging ones on here as well. Now let's put on the random bank and approach. Now every time I hit the approach, I'm going to get a slightly different variant. So it's put me on a slight roll and it's heading me out just to the right of it. So I'm now having to actually guide the craft to the runway myself. And again, if I press S6, it'll give me another random roll and heading. It's not going to be massively skewed, but it's just enough to force you to put some initial input into the approach yourself. So it's not just beautifully lined up and all you got to do is just drop it on the runway. Okay, so I hope you found this demo useful. It's quite a straightforward gauge, doesn't need too much explaining. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so and come back and check out some of our other videos. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.